Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys our BBT run, the Bandless Battlers tour. This is a tour that the BBL runs, I believe, once a year, or at least this is the second one, so maybe they plan on doing it once a year, something like that. We played last time, didn't do super well, but if you guys are new to the channel, you don't know, we won the last season, of the BBL's league, their Wi-Fi league, and I want to play some more Ubers, and I figured it'd be fun to play in the tour. There's a cash prize for this tour. I forget the exact amount. It'll probably be in the thumbnail as clickbait, so you'll know there. So we have a chance to walk away with some money, and I actually really loved our team this run, and I thought we had a really fun run, so I figured we might as well show it off to you guys, a lot like the Emerald Open video. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, be sure to drop a like to the channel as well as sub. We're on our way to 1,000 subs, and if you could help me out along that journey, I would really appreciate it a ton. Alright, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, I'm going to kind of just give you guys a brief overview of the team. I'm not going to go round by round like a draft analysis type thing or anything like that. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the team, why I like it a lot, some of the Pokemon that are really great on it, and things like that. I do have the full team showing right here, and I have my Uber, which is like the centerpiece of the team, in Zekrom here, which I'm really excited to try. But I do want to preface, actually, with the fact that we got Zekrom round 8. Out of 8. The reason this was the case is because we were on the back wheel, which is already crazy that Zekrom lasted that long, but we were right before Harris, who Liv was helping draft, and I wanted Liv to help me draft too, and I said, hey, help me draft, I won't take what Harris wants, and Harris won't take what I want, and we were able to kind of like mutually build some pretty fun teams here, and we got a really cool Zekrom round 8, which meant with our first like pseudo wheel, we were actually able to grab Slowking, Galar, and Mega Diancie, two great Pokemon, I really like, or at least Diancie I loved before. Slowking I got a big appreciation for this tournament. Let's go ahead and change it to regen, or it's going to bug me. But this thing, this is my first time trying it, but it's a staple in draft format at this point. Everybody loves this thing, whether it be AV, Calm Mind, Nasty Plot, Trick Room, just slack off defensive. You know, a bunch of different options with Slowking, and you'll kind of see that full force this tournament. We bring a ton of different really fun Slowking sets, and I think it's great. It's the king of spending passive damage, even without clicking something like Toxic that it doesn't actually get access to. We can Sludge Bomb and Scald and, you know, do a bunch of fun shenanigans like that. I don't believe we do get Thunder Wave as well if we even run on that. We can trick things. We can, again, do all those things I was talking about earlier with the great coverage we have. Really, really fun mod, and a great Spadef or even Fizdef sponge into a lot of these really scary Ubers. You know, at least soft checks them and kind of lets us gauge damage, scout things out, and pivot out with our regen, which I think is really great. We have double regen on the team, which you'll see in a little bit, which is also very, very nice. And yeah, a great mod. Mega Diancie too, also just great dragon killer, which I think is really important with the plethora of base 90 dragons that are going to be in Ubers. Mega Diancie is one of the best mods at kind of finding a way of, you know, really revenging those things. Can run away with games on its own. Has the option to go physical this gen, which is great with like Play Rough and Diamond Storm, as well as like, you know, Moonblast Power Gem. Has Mystical Fire this gen as well, Earth Power, so a bunch of different great coverage. Great rock where I got access to Encore this gen, which is actually phenomenal in my opinion. I think Encore Mega Diancie is absolutely amazing, so I'm really excited about that. I ended up grabbing a Rocker next, which is really, really nice. Swampert gives me a really reliable one. It also roll compasses really nicely for me, which is really important in 8-mon in my opinion. So having my water and my ground type at once is awesome. Same thing with Zarude, giving me momentum, giving me a solid speed tier in between Zekrom and Diancie, which is nice, as well as giving me a ground resist and a dark type, which is two things we didn't have, which I really do enjoy. Then we grabbed Odd, put regen on it, because that's why we have it. I think this thing is, you know, obviously, oh, I'm not low enough for you guys, sorry. But we end up grabbing Odd here, which is really, really clutch. And then I end up grabbing Bronzong. If you look at my team up to this point, I don't have good flying resist. I don't have good... What was the resist that I was really missing? Ice resist. I had no ice resist, so Bronzong is going to serve as a really, really important ice resist, because everything else on my team died to the move Freeze Dry, which is not a good thing to have, potentially, or even just like Icicle Crash in a physical sense, because we have like Lowking, I guess. And then lastly, I grabbed Machamp, and I wanted Machamp because it really helped me break down... you know, a lot of teams and a lot of things, especially for Mega Diancie, really breaking down steals, excuse me, which I think is really, really important. Also breaks down darks for Slowking, which is cool, and it is a phenomenal wall breaker. In this gen, we're playing PLA movesets, which I guess I forgot to mention, is the fact that we're playing with Pokemon Legends Arceus moveset buffs, as well as Pokemon in mind. and Machamp is a big benefactor of that, and getting access to Drain Punch and Mach Punch, which is two things it was really missing. Now this thing really is just budget conk, and I think it was actually pretty underpriced for the price point that it was at. So I was really excited to use this thing, but that means we're facing things like Ursalunas and potentially Enamorus and you know stuff like that, which is again really fun. So I'm really excited for this tour. I really like our team. Zekrom, Slowking, Diancie, Swampert, Zarude, Audino, Bronzong, and Machamp. And this is a team I actually really enjoy, and I don't think I've drafted a good team in a long time, and this is kind of the team that I drafted in the last like 2 months that I actually think is good. So I'm really excited about this. Yeah, I'll be right back with our first game. Alrighty, so for our first game of brackets, we're going up against CB Marcus. Awesome dude. One of the people who keeps the BBL up and running on a consistent basis. He makes YouTube content himself. I believe he's actually just started. So if I play anybody who makes YouTube content, I'll be sure to link him down below. And if I forget, yell at me in the comments. But Marcus is a really cool dude. He's a really good player as well. So we got our work cut out for us. And we have a Zekrom mirror in this matchup. And I'm going to be a little bit more in depth with like the builder portion of these, because I feel like in my other movies, I kind of just gloss over the team and show the games. I want to show my builds and stuff like that. It might make the video a little bit longer, but it's more content for you, so don't complain. Regardless, it's a really interesting matchup. We'll read off his team in Celesteela, Megalop, Hoopa U, Weezing Galar, Ninetales Alola, Rhyperior, Wishiwashi, Zekrom, and Shedinja. He also got a very late round Zekrom, so we're just two peas in a pod, me and this Marcus guy. But the issue with my Zekrom is I feel like I can't very viably go DD in this matchup when things like Weezing plus Rhyperior exist, but I still think that Zekrom has a lot of merit. So we're going with a 3 attack roosting set with a Bonberry. Full special, still have base 120 special attack, so we're very strong in that regard still. Think of like a Kieran Black going full special, essentially. But yeah, I think it is really, really solid in the sense that if we lose a speed tie against the Zekrom, the opposing Zekrom, we can always drop our own big Draco and potentially live through his hit with a Habanberry, which I think is really important. If something like Weezing wants to come in on us setting up and try and burn us, we can just Thunderbolt that thing and do a ridiculous amount of damage. Same thing with Rhyperior. If that thing wants to come hard in on us, we just drop a big Draco for free, which I think is really, really clutch. We're a great pivot into Celesteela as well. We don't really fear anything that Celesteela does, and because we're so damn bulky with 100, 120, 100 in our bulk, Earthquakes and whatever other coverage move that Celesteela wants to go for really isn't going to do a lot to us, even if it is offensive, which I think is really, really important. So, I think offensive Zekrom is really good, pretty straightforward set. We're just max. Now, I'm not going to really remember all the EVs for all these, so if like something like, you know, one of our other mons here, which we probably have something with like weird EVs. Like, yeah, I don't know why I'm 80 HP on that thing. I'll be 100% honest, but we'll see. But this is actually a pretty straightforward team, which is nice. Next up, we have our Mega Diancie, rocking out with Moonblast, Mystical Fire, Sub, and Calm Mind. Pretty simple max spread in order to... What are we even trying to tie? Why did we go max? See, I say these things, but then I just, like, don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm just max, lot for some reason. I might have just forgotten to change the EVs, to be completely and utterly honest with you guys, because there's not really a reason for me to be max speed unless I'm trying to create something at, like, +1. My bad, y'all. But regardless, I do think that Lop is really, really good in this matchup in general. Moonblast plus Mystical Fire hits my opponent's team really, really, really hard. And if we can get up subs and Calm Minds on different things like a potential Hoopa wanting to switch out, or potentially like the Weezing, if it's like a Mono Fairy move and it doesn't really have a great way of touching us. Otherwise, like if it's not Gyro Ball, is really what I'm trying to say. We can kind of sub Calm Mind and Moonblast. Mystical Fire is going to be a great way of ensuring that thing doesn't break our sub as well, which is, again, really, really clutch. And again, this thing is just a great offensive presence in this game. Outside of something like Celesteela, his entire team really does have the potential to just get 2-hit KO'd. And between Calm Mind and Mystical Fire, we can always beat down that Weezing, even though we don't actually technically have coverage for it, which I think is important. Next up, we have a Fizzdef Slowking. Very, very straightforward on this set. We are Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, Calm Mind, Slack Off with a Rocky Helmet. Rocky Helmet is here to check the Lopunny. Now, Lopunny did get Double Edge in PLA, which is really scary, and does have the potential to just raw 2-hit KOs if he's adamant, which is really, really scary, but there's not much we can do about that. And if it's clicking Double Edge twice, it's taking a ridiculous amount of damage, and we can always slack off in that thing's face, so it really has to hit us with the Double Edge on the switch, which is something that we can play around. Calm Mind, again, does really, really well otherwise in beating down things like Celesteela if it's like a defensive set, or beating down things like Wheezing, Ninetales, the Wishy-Washy potentially, things like that. Zekrom is obviously going to be able to kind of push through us, but we can throw out big Sludge Bombs, and if that thing wants to attack us as we Sludge Bomb poison it, things like that, we can potentially beat it 1v1. Hoopa, again, we can't really Calm Mind as long as that thing's around unless we confirm it's like fully special. But again, Sludge Bombs are pretty darn free, and just Poison plus Fire is really, really good against Marcus's team. So that's great. Next up, we have our Zarude rocking out with the Choice Scarf, Darkest Lariat, Power Whip, U-Turn, and Stomping Tantrum. Again, I don't really exactly remember what this bulk is for, but it is for something in general. Stomping Tantrum would hit things like the Zekrom, Lariat plus Power Whip, and U-Turn, just great overall coverage. It's a decent pivot into like a special Hoopa Unbound. If it's like physical Gunk Shot, it kind of nukes us, but we do live like Drain Punches and things like that. Unless it's banded. It's a way of revenging Lopunny potentially if it does end up getting low. And while it doesn't exert crazy offensive pressure in the sense that like things like Celesteela and Wheezing can come in very freely on it, it's a very good U-turn bot that allows us to U-turn and get into something like our Zekrom, our Diancie, something like that, which is great. Or our last member in Machamp, which we'll talk about in a second. After that, we have a Fizzdef Swampert rocking out with Leftovers, Torrent as its ability, Scald, Ice Beam, Toxic, and Stealth Rock. Pretty straightforward stuff. The reason we're not Ground Stab when playing into Zekrom is if Marcus wants to go with like a DD, Dragonclaw or Outrage, Bolt Strike, Magnet Rise set, he 100% sets up all over like Earth Powering Swampert. So I wanted to bring Toxic plus Ice Beam because that ensures that it cannot beat us, or it'll be incredibly chipped down for something else to come in and revenge it, or it'll just, go down while it's trying to take out our Swampert, which I think is really, really important because it has to boost up pretty considerably in order to beat down Swampert. So I'd rather just Toxic that thing. We have Ice Beam to break its sub if it is sub as well, which I think is, again, very, very important. So Swampert's pretty much here to do that. It's here to get up rocks. It also checks things like Rhyperior. It can Skull Burn Selly. And again, just be a general nuisance in this game. And then lastly, we have big old Guts Machamp rocking with the Flame Orb, Close Combat, Mach Punch, Knockoff, and Facade. I know that there's a potential neutralizing gas Wheezing, but Facade still chunks it, and again, it's unrecoverable damage, which is great for something like our Mega Diancie, our Zarude becomes a little bit nicer, things like that. So I'm not super worried about it in all honesty, especially because it can knock it off, get rid of its item, whether it be Helmet or Leftovers, or Black Sludge, I guess, in the case of Wheezing. Each are, a really good position for me. It gives me priority in Mach Punch. I can close combat through a lot of this team. I can Mach Punch to revenge the Lop, which is honestly one of the biggest threats to my team. And yeah, that's basically the team. Let's go ahead and swap right over, bam, to the game. So we can see what Marcus ended up bringing here in the Mega Lop, the Hoopa, the Rhyperior, Zekrom, the Wishy-Washy, and the, the Wheezing. We're going to play this one nice and slow. Let's go ahead and start the game. So, he's going to lead off with Wheezing, which is fine with me. I'm going to lead off my Pert, and this is an incredibly free Stealth Rock for your hero, as we do, I believe, go ahead and get Will-O-Wisp. That's fine. We're a special set, and our Leftovers are going to offset that burn, which I think is definitely really, really nice. Next turn, I am going to pivot out into my Slowking, which is completely fine. We're going to see Wishy-Washy come out. Now, I might not be able to beat this thing 1v1 if it's like, a really offensive variant, like an offensive Earthquake variant, but I would definitely live any hit, and getting off a free Sludge Bomb is really nice in order to potentially chip down and poison that Rhyperior, or chip down and poison this thing if he wants to end up staying in, which again, completely fine with me, and I'm going to be able to throw off this Sludge Bomb, but we're actually going to see that this Wishy-Washy is indeed eject button, which is very, very interesting. I didn't talk to Marcus after, so I don't know what this was particularly for. Maybe it was just to use it as a pivot because it's so damn bulky, at least in its schooling form. But the chip on this thing is amazing, like I said. It really helps out my Diancie in particular because it's something that could naturally take 2 hits from it, most likely, if it is like a Spit F variant, something like that. So regardless, it's going to be nice for me. Out comes Hoopa. I'm going to make the pivot into my Zarude, as I don't want to lose my Slowking, and I don't really have anything else that can take a hit from this Demon, as we are going to see a raw Gunk Shot, and it's just going to knock me out. So very aggressive play by Marcus, but it ended up working out for him. I'm going to go into my Mega Diancie, I believe, here, and I believe just off a big substitute as he tries to sack off his Wishy-Washy. And again, this is why sub is so clutch in this matchup, in my opinion, because it catches potential sacks off like this, and potential pivots out in order to save health and things like Hoopa, because I think Hoopa could actually potentially live that hit. But regardless, we'll throw off a Moonblast, we'll knock out this Wishy-Washy, and out comes Rhyperior. No reason to try and set up at this point, as I am just going to Moonblast for 48, which looks to be a 2-hit KO potentially, as a Body Press comes out, but unfortunately, we're going to see leftovers right here. This is going to force me to pivot out here and take a big Earthquake on my Machamp. That's completely fine. That's right here. In all honesty, I feel like I should have just clicked Facade. Oh, and the reason we went Machamp over Swampert is because I want to save as much health on that thing as possible, especially now that we're burned. When we still have to take hits from Zekrom, potentially even Lop, things like that. It's really good for this Rhyperior to come in later. So I'd rather keep it around when I can use this as more offensive position to get in my Machamp to click a button and do some damn damage, which is great. But right here, the Weezing's going to come out, and I really wanted to click Facade, but I kind of chicken out and click Close Combat, as I believe he does show to be leftovers, which is, what do you call it? I actually just noticed it's leftovers, not Black Sludge. It really doesn't matter, except in like a trick scenario, but not that big of a deal. We're going to see Strange Steam come out right here, as it absolutely bounces off my Glow-King, and again, I have a pretty darn free Machamp double right here, because I really do expect something like the Rhyperior to come in on my Slowking, but I guess I could have potentially been Scald, so maybe that's why he made a little bit of a safer pivot into the Hoopa and tried to grab a little bit more offensive momentum, but regardless, this kind of forces me into a position where I have to Mach Punch and get chipped. Machamp is probably the least useful member on my team at this point. Mach Punch is going to do a ton to this, and if it's like a Assault Vest variant, it guaranteed puts in range of things like Zekrom and even DNC, depending on how bulky it really is. So I am just going to throw out that big Mach Punch, do 57%, doesn't kill it, but it brings it really low. Even after this Drain Punch, this Hoopa is going to be incredibly low, to where my DNC is just going to come in. I'm going to click Moonblast this time because I don't expect him to let me get up a sub again, and we're going to take it out. This next turn, Lop's going to come out, and I am going to go hard in my Slowking. I obviously chew up a Close Combat. I even chew up like a weird like Iron Tail, if this thing gets that, which is nice, but we are going to see a U-turn come out, and this thing taking Rocks plus Helmet is going to be incredibly clutch as Rhyperior comes out. Now, thankfully, since I didn't take that hit with my Swampert earlier, I'm a little bit more free of a pivot into it right here, as we do take a pretty big chunk from Earthquake, but from here, I just have an incredibly free Scald, as the Weezing Galar is going to come out, and it's not going to appreciate this, especially considering it's probably pretty Fizz Def, and it's going to get burned right here, nullifying those leftovers, really putting me in a pretty solid spot against this thing. So I'm going to pivot hard into my DNC, as we do see a Will-O-Wisp come back, and it's going to bounce that right back. It covered my Slowking pivot if you wanted to use that to try and keep me low, chip me down, things like that. And also covered like a weird Toxic Spikes play on my Slowking as well, trying to poison something like my DNC or my Zekrom, which could have been pretty annoying. But right here, I'm in a pretty free position to just Calm Mind up, as you're going to see Strange Steam at +1 is not breaking my sub. Only unfortunate thing is we do end up getting confused here, and you're going to see this is going to put us in a bit of a pickle. If not, we were actually in a ridiculously good position to do a ton of damage to my opponent, but we're going to get hit in confusion. And then we're going to get hazed, unfortunately, which kind of, again, nullifies and gets rid of anything we really wanted to go for before. This next turn, I am just going to go for a Mystical Fire here, though, because it does end up covering a potential haze again. And then the next turn, I will be able to take it out with the Moonblast. So at least this Weezing is gone. It's a big nuisance out of my hair, but it's not a Pokemon I needed to keep around regardless. This next turn, I have a pretty free Slowking. Now, I knew that Double Edge obviously took out my lot from there, but regardless, this is a very free pivot. I don't believe I died a crit, being that it's 1.5 instead of 2. And if this thing wants a Double Edge, take Helmet plus the Double Edge recoil. If it does call me on that switch, I can just pivot back into my DNC and sack it off, and then get back into my Slowking, and again, be a genuine nuisance to my opponent's team, which I think is great. So I am just going to do that right here. So this thing's already down to 24%. And the next turn, as we do take 48 here from the hit, we take it down to our own Helmet, and then we're able to just, you know, slack it all off, which is really solid. Next turn, Rhyperior is going to come out. I do have a pretty free Swampert right here, and I do have a pretty darn free Scald, which I think is really important. We're going to go ahead and Scald the Rhyperior. I believe we actually, Marcus told me last game, or after the game, that I high rolled him there and got a lot of damage off there. But realistically, that would have put me in a pretty tough position, as you're going to see, because if I didn't end up getting a roll there, what I kind of would have had to do... Actually, no, I don't think it mattered, because he didn't kill me with Rhyperior on that next Earthquake. Because I was thinking, if he kills me, and I have to revenge him with Zekrom, I'm at -2, this DD Zekrom can come in and kind of win the game. But, we would have lived another Earthquake, and he would have been forced to probably attack me with his Zekrom. As right here, he is going to go into Zekrom, he is going to DD up, and right here I'm going to click Toxic. Now, I could have clicked Ice Beam, but you can see Toxic is actually going to be my better play right here. It's really going to chip him down. And it covers him being a roost variant and, like, you know, roosting off ice beam damage, as it definitely can do. Because next turn I am going to go down to a Dragon Claw, which is pretty unfortunate. But after this thing taking 2 turns of Toxic, I'm able to go into my Slowking pretty darn freely, throw off a big Sludge Bomb, and get about 29% off on this thing. And from here, we win the game, because even if we don't live this hit, which we actually do end up living this hit, we'll be able to take it out via Toxic and win 1-0. But thankfully, we win 2-0, which is nice in a really close game to Marcus. I think there's some things I could have done a little bit tighter. I still don't know why my Diancie was just max. I think I just forgot to change the EVs, and I clicked suggested spread and never tweaked them because they definitely weren't supposed to be so. But it's all good. We ended up working out. And yeah, we're able to win 1-0 in our first game. And we can move on to our second game of brackets. Alright, game number 2 pools. We're playing Cacao Nuts. And a very scary team with Gengar, Mega, which is terrifying with a team like mine, Ursaluna, Hydreigon, Togekiss, Empoleon, Infernape, Tangela, Boltund, and Wartortle. So realistically, those top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are really scary. And then the bottom 3 really aren't too scary. I actually think the bottom 3 are all really bad versus me, and I don't think that they should come. But, you know, to be seen. We really do kind of really key down on that top 6 with, you know, minor things to keep in mind for those bottom 3, which is great. Our first one, though, is going to be our Zekrom, and we're going DD Zekrom this time, and it absolutely smashes my opponent. They really do not deal with the dual style combination of Bull Strike plus Outrage. We can just kind of outrage through a ton of things, sub on, you know, some pretty decent members like Empoleon. If something like Tangela wants to come, we could sub down pretty darn easily on it. We can force pretty consistent switches, which is great as well. And if we get up a DD and we're behind a sub, things like Scarf Hydreigon can't revenge us as easily, or even a Scarf Infernape if we are weakened, which is great. And we are bulky enough to set up on really a ton of different things. We really do have to chip down that Ursaluna. It's really one of the only Pokemon that we can't just raw Oko at +1. Everything else does just go down. And again, if we're behind a sub, when the Ursaluna is coming in to deal with us at +1, we can just Outrage, 2-hit KO it, knock it out. And then go from there. Now, if we do get confused, we probably do have to switch out, but that's the beauty of this thing, is it can really function and come in multiple times throughout the game, in my opinion. And if we can also just set it up, we can just win, provided we avoid some confusion turns, which is great. Next up, we have an Assault Vest, Slowking, rocking out with Regen, obviously, Sludge Bomb, Ice Beam, Focus Blast, and Psychic. Does really solid this game. It's a decent check to things like Hydreigon, in the sense that we can live like 2 Scarf hits, which is nice. We check Togekiss, we wall Empoleon really to the ends of the earth. We wall a special Infernape. We can take a Gengar hit and not be trapped and kind of just, you know, nuke it back with a Psychic after a little bit of chip, which is great. And it really just has great coverage all around in this game. We're a little bit more Fizdef to take on, you know, physical hits from the Infernape and things like that. But kind of get that dual spec option in, you know, being AV and as well being pretty darn Fizdef. We also have our Mega Diancie. We're going with a Rock Polish 3 attack set with just Moonblast, Earth Power, Power Gem, Rock Polish. Just really good this game. Again, if we can just chip down things like Empoleon, not much switches into this thing. At +2, we can obviously outspeed everything and do a ton of damage. We've chipped down things like the Ursaluna, the Empoleon, and yeah, it does really well. It's a great deterrent to like Scarf Hydra. Obviously Flash Cannon is going to nuke us, but that means locking Flash Cannon, giving Zekrom setup, which is also very nice, or just Zekrom KOs, which is very nice. And yeah, it just does really well offensively, and endgame, if we can chip things down, it's a great win con. Next up, once again, Choice Scarves are rude. This is a great way of revenging the Mega Gengar. If you look at my team, I obviously do not deal with Mega Gengar whatsoever. This is my Ghost Resist, and Grass doesn't resist poison. It's actually weak to it, unfortunately. So you gotta be very careful about it. But again, this is a great U-turn bot. We can pivot into Hydreigon as well. Take a hit, U-turn out, which is great. Forcing things like the Togekiss in order to get a U-turn out into either a Slowking or a Zekrom and things like that. And we do have Rock Slide to potentially chip down the Togekiss. And yeah, potentially put on a ton of pressure. It's a great way of doing a lot of damage to Ursaluna. We also resist ground. We just die to Guts Facade, but that's what it's going to do. Speaking of the Ursaluna, though, we do have a potential check in our Bronzong, rocking out with the Leftovers and Levitate as its ability. Body Press, Protect, Stealth Rock, and Gyro Ball. The reason that we are Protect is just to get residual back via Leftovers, as well as Scouting Scarves from things like Hydra, Togekiss, Infernape, things like that, as there are a lot of potential Scarf and Choice Pokemon on this team. Body Press is going to be a great way of really beating down Ursaluna, which this thing is here to check, but as well as hitting Hydreigon and Empoleon very hard, which would typically switch in on this thing pretty darn easily. And being that we're max defense, it's coming off of, what, that 364 defense stat right there, which is really, really clutch and does a ton of damage. Garaball is just, you know, great secondary stab. It hits the Togekiss very hard, which is also very, very nice. And then lastly, we have an Assault Vest Machamp rocking out with Guts, Drain Punch, Mach Punch, Knockoff, and Stone Edge. Great coverage overall for this team. Does a ton of damage to the opposing team. Knock off some boots, be a general nuisance, and Drain Punch up, and you know, all that good stuff. So just a good general pivot overall. And again, just doesn't get immediately revenged and OHKO'd by the Mega Gengar, and is a great way of revenging Ursaluna. Hydreigon is a good Hydreigon pivot. We can knock off as well as Stone Edge the Togekiss if we catch that. Drain Punch Empo, Infernape doesn't take hits, knock off the Tangela, and then beat the other two because they're not good Pokemon, which is great. And yeah, I think with that being said, bam, onto the game we go. We can see an Hydreigon, Infernape, Tangela, Togekiss, Ursaluna, and Empoleon. So there's no Mega Gengar, which just didn't make much sense to me at preview because I felt like that Pokemon demolished me. But hey, neither here nor there. I'm not going to complain about the Uber Pokemon not coming in the Uber's tour. Again, especially against a team like mine that literally had no resistance or, no resistance to the dual stab combination of Poison plus, Ghost. So, I'll take it. Whatever. We're going to start off this game. I'm going to lead off with Machamp, as we do see an Ursaluna lead. This is a great lead for me, as I just off a very free knockoff. If this thing wants to stay in and lose its Flame Orb or its Assault Vest, whatever it may be, that's great, but I really don't think it's going to want to take any chip because Zekrom is going to come in and just win the game otherwise, which is really, really important. As right here, I am going to knock off the Heavy Duty Boots off the Togekiss and get a very free Bronzong right here, as we do see a Baton Pass coming out, confirming one of the moves, showing this probably not Nasty Plot, which is also really good to know for me, because if it gets enough flinches, that thing can get really out of hand. Hydreigon's going to come out here. It's actually going to show to be Dragon Dance, which is incredibly, incredibly interesting. Not something I super expected, but it's actually not something that's super bad against me, in all honesty. I am glad that I went with Machamp here, a little bit more of an aggressive switch, as I am going to be able to just off a Drain Punch. I could have Stone Edged on a Predict, but if that thing was willing to set up in my face, again, I could have just like raw lost the game potentially, because Stone Edge into Mach Punch did not kill. But this next turn, Moonblast is going to come out, as Togekiss did get that in PLA, which is really annoying for special attackers. Thankfully, we are Gyro Ball Bronzong. As right here, I believe I do just get up my Stealth Rock on the incoming Tangela, which is great. This next turn, I am going to pivot into my Slowking, as I do get put to sleep, and because I get put to sleep on this guy, it actually gives me an incredibly free switch into my Zekrom, as this thing really cannot deal with me super well. I am going to lose my leftovers, which is a bit unfortunate, but at this point, it's time to sub. It's time to Dragon Dance. It's time to Outrage, do a ridiculous amount of damage, and you're going to see my opponent really throws right here. They should have just sacked off their Ursaluna and then gone into their Togekiss, because then I wouldn't have been broken out of Outrage, and if I got a 3-turn Outrage, I would have had to stay in and then just died to Moonblast. But they go hard Togekiss, and one, they're going to take Rocks, and two, when you Outrage into a Fairy type, it takes you out of your Outrage. Like, it stops you from being locked into it because you didn't actually hit anything because they're immune to it, which is great. So I'm going to Bolt Strike and win the game. But unfortunately, I'm going to miss right there. You're going to see later, he had no Scarfer. He was not Scarf Infernape. I just outraged forever. He has to get lucky with Empoleon. That's like his only way of winning, I guess. But we're going to miss right there. And from here, the game just goes downhill. I'm going to go into my Mega DNC right here, as Empoleon is indeed going to come out, and I am just going to, I believe, throw off a big Moonblast, do about 19%, which is nice, and then pivot right out into Machamp, as if I get Skull Burned, it's fine. Flash Cannon obviously is not doing much, as Tangela is going to pivot out next, right here, as I do Stone Edge, predicting the Togekiss to come in, and then I'm going to knock off this next turn, obviously do a little bit of damage, as Leech Seed is going to come out here and give this Tangela a ton of health back. I'm going to pivot into Diancie, as I actually expected a Togekiss double in, especially with the, the Leech Seed up. Maybe a little bit of an over-aggressive play by me, as this Tangela is going to get up ridiculously healthy, and then I go into my Slowking, just to try and burn a turn of sleep, as Ursaluna is going to be able to come in, take a little bit of damage as I go into my Rude. As we see a Smackdown, I'm going to be able to lariat this thing, knock it right out, which is nice. then Infernape's going to come out, and unfortunately, it shows to be Swords Dance. And that's a wrap. We're unfortunately going to lose to Swords Dance Infernape, as it does show Mach Punch. And, yeah, we're going to go ahead and lose to this Infernape. There's not really much else to say. If I hit that Outrage, I would have won. And I didn't hit my Outrage, and I lost. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes Pokemon sucks, and sometimes you get unlucky, and there's not much you can do about it. But thankfully, this is just game 1 or game 2 of 3. And if we win our next game, we're good. We can move on to the brackets. If not, well, this game's gonna sting a little bit more. And unfortunately, we play a phenomenal player in our next game in Harris. So we gotta work it out for us, but hopefully we can do it. All right, next up, for our last pool game and our must-win game, we're playing against Harris, who is a very, very solid player. And if you remember earlier in the video, the person that we actually had in our drafting pool that Liv drafted for, so we were able to kind of draft our own team around what he was getting and kind of get what we wanted. But that also means we kind of let him get what he wants, and he has a really scary team as a result. But you can see he has the Mega Scizor, Garchomp, Rotom Wash, Togekiss, Muckalola, Rabombi, Emolga, and Lunala. Lunala's a demon. I keep playing these scary ghost types when I don't have great ghost resist. My ghost resist is still Zarude, by the way. So this is really, really scary. Plus side, though, is Zekrom goes absolutely buck wild in this game. Does phenomenally in this game. So I'm really hoping that it can pull through, do a ton of work in this game. If we can position it correctly, we have to be careful about things like Scarf Chomp. But if we can get it to +2, which is definitely a very viable possibility, we can do a lot of work against this team, which is great. Or just click offensive button and, you know, be a general nuisance overall. Again, really, really, really solid in that regard. So let's go ahead and jump into it. You see our Zekrom here first. Dragon Claw, Bull Strike, Dragon Dance, and Roost. In hindsight, maybe Boots weren't the move, because I was really scared of Rabombi coming up and setting up webs, because as you see on the team, I have no removal besides Mega DNC potentially bouncing it back. But I also don't think that webs are the best versus my team, especially considering against this team, I'm likely to go potentially like a Scarf Zarude, which we did end up going, obviously, as you can see. Which just brings us back down to neutral. I guess it would have been clutch for the Zekrom, but he does have Scarfers that outpace it, like Scarf Garchomp, which you do see he does end up bringing. And the rest of my team is actually pretty considerably slow. So I don't think he really needed to bring webs, and you're going to see he doesn't end up bringing webs. So it's a bit of a wasted item. I wish I was like Lum or Leftovers or something like that instead. But regardless, we do very well this game. If we get it to +2, we just win, provided we break the Shadow Shield and Lunala. And if we get up to +1, we still pretty much claim a KO guaranteed. And again, our big, big nuisance this team. Next up, we have our Mega DNC, rocking out the DN side, obviously Magic Bounce's ability, Player of, Diamond Storm, Mystical Fire, and Encore. We're actually a physical Mega DNC, as you can see this week. And even though we're jolly, a Diamond Storm into a Mystical Fire always kills Mega Scizor, even if it is Spadef or Fizdef, whatever the spread may be. And provided we get that +2 boost, we actually guarantee Liv a Mega Scizor hit pretty darn easy, and can Mystical Fire it afterwards, which is really great. Making this thing an absolute demon in this matchup. Things like the Muck aren't going to switch in on an almost max attack Diamond Storm or play off very easy, opposed to as if it was AV, and switching it on a Moonblast, something like that would be a little bit easier. Which is obviously very, very nice. The Diamond Storm is really, really spammable in this game. Diamond Storm plus Play Rough, in all honesty, is like ridiculously free against this team. Yeah, it does really, really solid. We have Encore for things like we have Encore for like Roost Togekiss, I guess, but we're kind of forcing that out. Curse Muck is another option. We can Encore Rabombi trying to, I don't even know what we can Encore Rabombi into. It might have been Garchomp. We can come in hard on Garchomp as like SDs, as we might not kill it from full. It was just a nice fourth move. I didn't really think I needed anything else, so it was nice. Next up, we have Fizdef, Swampert, Scald, Ice Beam, Roar, and Stealth Rock. Good rocker this game. Checks Garchomp, can roar things around, like Togekiss, spread burns, be a general nuisance, roar out a Lunala trying to set up, roar out a Mega Scizor that's trying to set up after we potentially burn it with Scald, which is, again, really, really nice. Mega Scizor is really scary versus my team, like an SD set with, like, Bullet Punch, Bug Bite. Can do a lot of work, so you have to be very careful about that. Then we have an Assault Vest, Slowking with Sludge Bomb, Hex, Scald, and Ice Beam. Hex is a cool tech for things like the Lunala. If we can burn it or poison it, Hex is going to do a ridiculous amount, if not kill, depending on what the health it's at and what its spread is and things like that from there. Scald is nice, really just to kind of burn things. We're really trying to spread burns on things like the Muck, the Lunala, things like that would switch on us. Otherwise, The Scizor, we can beta burn on that, which is really nice because we are not Flamethrower. Ice Beam is to hit Garchomp, and then Sludge Bomb is just our general stab of choice. Hit things like Togekiss, as this is going to be our main Togekiss check. And then we have our Zarude, rocking out the Choice Scarf. A good way of revenging the Lunala. It's a good pivot into it. I believe we have enough to live a Focus Blast or an Ice Beam. It's one of the two. And those are very drastically different moves power-wise, but hey, it's one of those two. We do live it, which is nice. Then we have an Assault Vest Machama, which also does really good this game. We are Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Knockoff. Great punch. Sorry about that. But offensively, there's not a lot of switching to this, and if it's Guts, it does a ton of damage to things if we do end up beating a burn from like the Rotom or something like that, which is, again, very, very nice. Okay. Oopsie daisy. There we are. That's our next game here against Harris. We see the Mega Scizor, Garchomp, Togekiss, Rotom Wash, Muck, and Lunala. We're going to go ahead and jump into this one right here, as we do see a Togekiss lead into our Swampert. I feel pretty comfortable at least once going for rocks. Unfortunately, we do get flinched. That's just how Togekiss works. It's not the biggest deal in the world, as I am going to be able to pivot into my Slowking, take almost 0, and just throw off a Scald, trying to bait a burn on this Scizor, Lunala, whatever might want to switch in, as the Black Sludge is going to heal up the Muck, as we unfortunately do not end up getting the thing. But this is going to give us a very free rocks here, which is nice. Rotom Wash can come in, but we'll at least find out if that thing is Defog, and I get a pretty free switch into my Machamp otherwise. It does go for the Volt Switch, which is unfortunate, but it's chip that we can get back, as the Togekiss is going to come in next, as I do just pivot again into my Slowking right here. We do see a Calm Mind and then an Air Slash Miss. I don't believe this thing will be able to 1v1 me, even if it is weakness policy provided, unless it gets a ton of very, very lucky flinches, as I do just spam Sludge Bomb right here, as I can kind of just bait a poison on this thing and eventually crit it or make it run out of roost, as we do end up just getting a crit right away. Again, at that point, I feel like I'm just they're kind of playing with fire, but whatever, I'll take it. As right here, the Muck is going to come out next. I get a very free pert once again, and I believe I do just throw off a Scald here. Yeah, I could have roared there and roared this thing out, but I was definitely worth trying to get a potential burn on it, as it is going to Hydro Pump here, maybe expecting me to stay in, as it can just Volt Switch the next turn pretty darn freely, which is great. And I'm going to Scald again and try and get a burn on this Muck. Unfortunately, not get it there, but it's all good. Not the biggest deal in the world. So we do, again, get our free pert, really start to chip down this Rotom in conjunction with Torrent Boosted Scald and the hits it's taken before. We've really chipped down this Rotom. We're down now, but that's completely fine in all honesty, as I can now go into my DNC and just basically nab a KO with Diamond Storm. There's not really anything that can stop it. So right here we do 46%, and this Mega Scizor is going to click Bullet Punch to no avail, as we knock it out with a Mystical Fire this next turn, thankfully due to our boost. So down it goes. Garchomp is going to come out right here. I am just going to play Rough right here. I don't believe I always kill Garchomp, depending on its bulk, but I at least get to scout and see if this thing is Scarf, and as you can see, I don't have great Garchomp switch-ins anyway, so maybe we should have kept this around the back for an Outrage pivot, but I also don't want to allow this thing to Sword Stance for free. So I just got off a big play Rough. Right here, I'm going to go into my Zarude, and I believe just click U-turn. Yep, as the Muck is going to come in, it's going to take about 22, and now it's time to get into our Zekrom right here. Right here, Lunala is going to come out. It's going to show to be heavy-duty boots in order to keep that Shadow Shield, which is a bit unfortunate, but not the biggest deal in the world. So I am going to DD up right here, and I'm going to get Wisped. And this is really unfortunate because of the fact that I am just, getting Wisped right here. I really wish I was Lum, and I think Lum would have been much, much smarter. Right here, I am just going to get Hex down for about 50%, which is unfortunate. And I throw off another big, big Bolt Strike and do what? 50%? Or 57% even when I'm burned. But I am going to get the full para, which is really, really big because this Lunala is basically dead at this point, unfortunately. And I'm going to be able to Dragon Claw it now. He can't go into Garchomp because I'll just kill that thing with a Dragon Claw. As right here, he is going to go into the Rotom, pivot out into the Muck, sack it off. And at first I was a little bit confused. I was like, why is he doing this? But it turns out very smart play because he is going to be a Custat Berry Rotom. He's going to be able to Foul Play and knock me out from there, which is definitely a smart bring. But from here, I believe I just go into Machamp. I believe I just click Drain Punch. Get a little bit of health back. And I don't believe that this thing can kill me with an lock into Outreach and beat me, because I do have my Slowking in the back, which can come in, can take this, and then just knock it out with an Ice Beam due to our investment, which is great. If not, we go into Zarude the next turn and just knock it out. So we should be completely fine in that instance. But yeah, that was a pretty unfortunate game. That para into full para on the Lunala was huge. But I'll definitely take it unless he roosted that turn. I don't know if it's the biggest deal in the world. And in hindsight, maybe I could have just set up on that thing, and just Dragon Danced again, roosted and things like that. Though I guess Hex was doing 50, and that in conjunction with Burn is just too much. But yeah, I really wish I didn't go Boots. It ended up being completely a useless item, but oh well, who knows. I also figured that Bolt Strike and Terravolt let me go through Shadow Shield, but it didn't. So maybe I don't understand Mold Breaker but big, right? Or maybe it's I don't understand Shadow Shield, because the way I thought of it is Terravolt is just Zekrom Mold Breaker. And I thought I would just go through, what do you call it? The defense boost. And with the damage that I do with Zekrom, what do you call it? Let's see, if I'm like +2 adamant, what was my, what do you call it? My spread. Let me check that, because I'm actually genuinely curious. I haven't checked this in a while. 160. This game was obviously a while ago. 60 adamant to a Lunala. It looked like it was about max HP based on that damage. Oh, let's check this. We're gonna go 99. Yeah, we just kill it if that's the case. And we are burned. So yeah, we would have just killed it at +2. So if I was Lum, I would have been in a better position. I wasn't, unfortunately, and you know, we got punished for it. So definitely my bad, but it was definitely a fun one regardless. And we're able to sneak into brackets off of a pretty lucky win there. But like you all saw the game before, I got pretty darn unlucky versus Cacao Nut, so I will take it. It gets me into brackets, and you know, as long as we're in brackets, we can make a run. So it's time to make a run. Alrighty, so we have top 32 against Liv, the owner of the BBL, Miss BBL herself, and she has a really, really terrifying team, including a Mewtwo, which is not something I'm super excited about. You see, she also has a Sneasler, which can be very, very difficult for our team to deal with overall, which is definitely scary. Scizor, also very scary, good DNC check, and really good offensively versus my team, really outside of Zekrom, which is pretty scary. Ursaluna, another really scary PLA mon that we don't really switch into very well. We have Bronzong, which is actually a pretty good check, but Fire Punches and Crunchers still don't feel good, and we don't necessarily beat it 1v1. Other than that, though, I feel pretty confident in this, and I think our Zekrom matchup is insane. So let's go ahead and kind of start talking about these Pokemon right here. As first up, we're going to have our Lumberry Zekrom, rocking out with Bolt Strike, Dragon Dance, Roost, and Dragon Claw. Now, provided that we get, you know, the sufficient chip that we really do need on things like the Ursaluna, this thing can definitely win. We have to be careful about foul play from Rotom, but with our bulk investment, we aren't going to die if we get up to +1 or potentially even +2, depending on how healthy we are. I don't remember that calc exactly. We might die at +2, to be honest, to a foul play. But regardless, we can set up on the Rotom in the sense that we are Lumberry, so if we end up getting burned from that thing, it's not that big of a deal, which is obviously very, very nice for us. And yeah, we're able to kind of just really win the game with this thing as soon as Ursaluna takes any chip whatsoever. Bull Strike and Dragon Dance is pretty much uncontested against Liv's team. Next up, we have another physical Mega DNC where Player of Diamond Storm, Mystical Fire, and Stealth Rock. Same thing where we can always live a Scizor hit after we get a Diamond Storm boost and just knock it out with a Mystical Fire from there, which is great. Then we're rocking out with Stealth Rock just to get a Brock. It's great for chipping down her team. And physical makes it to where we're not going to get like potentially Calm Mind on by like a really bulky Mewtwo, which is really nice as well. And we can break through things like Togekiss a little bit easier, which is great. Now we're a little bit more susceptible to like a Fizz Def Ursaluna, but if that's the check to this thing, that means it's coming in, it's taking a player off, it's taking Diamond Storm potentially, and we can live an Earthquake after a Diamond Storm boost as well. And yeah, we're really chipping that thing down in order to set up for a Zekrom endgame, which is again the end goal. Next up, I have Mewtwo, or my Mewtwo check. Sorry, I don't have Mewtwo, I wish. We have a Zarude right here, rocking out with the Choice Scarf, Leaf Guard, its ability, Power of Lariat, U-Turn, and Tantrum. Again, this thing is pretty much solely here to check that, what do you call it, that Mewtwo. We can always pivot in, I believe, take like a modest Ice Beam or something like that, and potentially force the thing out or outspeed it and, you know, do a ton of damage with Lariat, a ton of damage with U-Turn, things like that. It's a solid check to Rotom as well. We have to be careful about being burned. It's also a solid pivot into Ursaluna if it's not clean facade. Again, we have to be very careful. Now, we are stuffed by a few things. We're stuffed by Scizor and we're stuffed by Togekiss. I could have had Rock Slide for Togekiss, but realistically, I'm not 2-hit KOing most Togekisses anyways. And I'd rather have the Stomping Tantrum coverage for Sneasler, because that Pokemon is actually very, very good versus me. So having good ground coverage for it, and just a little bit chipped in range, could be really, really clutch for us. So I think that's really important. Next up, we have a Fizz Def Assault Vest Slowking. Rocking out Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, Foul Play, and Psychic. We are Foul Play on this thing in order to ensure that a sub Calm Minding Mewtwo cannot sub. We always break it sub. and I believe with a poison, we 2-hit KO foul play, or with foul play to a max HP Mewtwo, which I think is very, very nice. We have Flamethrower for things like Scizor, Sludge Bomb just to hit things like Rotom, Ursaluna, Togekiss, things like that. And then Psychic, because there is no immunity, because Grimer doesn't count, unfortunately. And it's a great way of pivoting in and checking Sneasler. We'll chew up Shadow Claws and things like that as well, because we're pretty Fizz-Def. We're as Fizz-Def as possible, too, so we can take, potential Psy Strikes, which Psy Strike can still definitely do it KO us, but, we're taking a little bit less from it, and we're not just dying to it at +1 or something like that. Next up, we have a pretty Fizz-Def Bronzong with Iron Head, Toxic, Protect, and Psychic. This thing is going to be our main check to that Ursaluna. Obviously, we don't necessarily want to Toxic it, because then we could potentially be giving it Guts if it's like a, again, like a Fizz-Def Leftover set, or like a Rocky Helmet, or Assault Vest, something like that. That could be pretty tough, but Toxic is great for other things. We have Psychic, so that we can hit the Sneasler very hard. This is also a really good check to that thing. Despite Fighting being neutral and Shadow Claw being coverage. Iron Head to hit things like Togekiss and Diancie. And yeah, again, just in general nuisance. We also can soft check Mewtwo. If it's not a sub-variant, we can Toxic and Protect and really chip it down. Hopefully getting in range as a root a little bit later on. Then lastly, I got Big Machamp, rocking out with Close Combat, Facade, Bullet Punch, Drain Punch. This Pokemon does really good in this matchup. Facade into Bullet Punch kills most Togekiss variants. Close Combat kind of just nukes everything else. Close Combat and Facade really just nuke his her entire team in this game. So definitely very, very excited about the build. I think it's pretty darn solid. Let's go ahead and jump right into the battle. So you can see the team that Liv ended up bringing. She ended up bringing Togekiss, Mewtwo, Ursaluna, Sneasler, Rotom, Wash, and Scizor. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to lead off with Slowking, as I feel like it's a pretty safe general lead against everything not named Ursaluna. And being that I have my Bronzong in the back, so I feel like as if I have a pretty free pivot into that. And I want to lead well against something like a Rotom, something like a Togekiss, or even something like a Scizor, because Scizor is really, really scary versus my team, and I can always threaten it out with a Flamethrower, which is really, really important. So we're going to see a hard switch out, and this kind of implies that Liv does not have U-turn, which means that she's probably like a Swords Dancing Bug Bite variant, or like Swords Dance Bullet Punch knockoff, but more than likely Bug Bite in this matchup, in my opinion. We are going to see the Ursaluna come out, and we are going to see it take 11 from Flamethrower. Really, absolutely nothing, but chip is chip regardless, and I'm not super upset about that. We'll see a Fire Punch come out right here. Starting this thing's not ridiculously investor, not super scary for us in the slightest at this point in the game, which is definitely very nice. This next turn, I'm going to make the double out into my Machamp on this Ursaluna, whether it be Rotom coming in, which is really, really clutch for me because Rotom can't like immediately threaten me, or even Scizor coming in. I can threaten it out with a Fire Punch or get off a Guts boosted Close Combat, which is honestly a really, really worthwhile trade in my opinion. So I felt like Machamp was a pretty free double right here, and if the Ursaluna did stay in and attack again, it was going to Fire Punch as it saw. So, and I'm not super scared of that with my Machamp. We saw that, it wasn't Guts or anything like that, so we could definitely chew it. This is going to allow me pretty much a very, very free Facade right here. So we're going to see a Volt Switch come out. Despite us not being Assault Vest, we're not going to take that much damage, as Facade is going to do 58, showing this is pretty much a max defense Togekiss. Now, if it was just like a max HP, maybe even a little bit defense, we could have potentially taken out the Bullet Punch, but due to how little that thing actually took from a max attack Adamant Facade, we're going to switch right out into our Mega Diancie, as this thing is forced into a Roost turn, which is completely fine. And this next turn, I am going to elect to just throw off a big Diamond Storm, get off General Chip on anything that wants to come in. Really, the only switch into this thing is going to be this Ursaluna, and any chip on this thing, humanly possible, is absolutely amazing for me. So this next turn, since I got the defense boost, I'm going to elect to get up my rocks. My rocks are going to be very imperative in chipping down things. Again, even peppering down that Ursaluna as it comes in, but breaking a Sash on Sneasler, chipping down Scizor, chipping down Rotom, letting me find out the Togekiss' item, whether or not it's boots or not, things like that, which I think is really important. And as you can see, since this isn't very invested, we absolutely chew that up. As this next turn, Scizor is going to come out as we play rough right here, doing a decent chunk, showing this thing is leftovers. Now, despite our +2, we definitely aren't living from 46, so I'm not going to stay in right here, as we do see a Bullet Punch come out for about 19, which is still very nice for us. Again, Ursaluna can come right out. I'm completely fine with that, as I do just throw off a Foul Play, as it does a little bit more, and it still does decent damage to the Scizor, especially stops it from, wanting to set up on my face, which is great. This next turn, we're going to make that Bronzong pivot, as Rotom comes out, and we once again make the Machamp double. So we're trying to really get this Machamp in as much as humanly possible and exert as much pressure as humanly possible. As this next turn, Liv is going to elect a Hydro Pump. Thankfully, I'm just going to be able to Facade, as the Scizor is going to come out next, which is very, very interesting as I pivot out into my Zarude. Maybe she was expecting me to want to save this thing. And maybe she's potentially Scarf or something like that, which is definitely another very interesting option. So next turn, I am just going to U-turn and basically sack off my Machamp. It did a lot of work. It chipped down the Rotom. It gave me a little bit of information on the Togekiss, and yeah, put us in a decent spot. This next turn, I am just going to go into our Zekrom. I'm just going to Dragon Claw right here. I don't think she's going to give me the opportunity to straight up just win yet. If I do imagine Ursaluna was, potentially out of range, or Mewtwo can probably live hit a +1, do a ton of damage. We're going to see Togekiss come out, and we are going to see it take rocks, which is, again, very interesting to see. It may have been a Scarf variant, maybe Scarfroost, but I doubt it. It could also be Wakan in order to take on a +1 Bolt Strike or something like that from full. This next turn, as I throw off a Toxic with my Bronzong, she's going to go into the Scizor, but again, that's completely fine. It goes for a Roost this turn again, revealing that its last move is most likely, Swords Dance. It hasn't clicked it yet, but I'll definitely take it. And this Ursaluna is getting ridiculously chipped down in the face of our Slowking, forcing it in every single time. So this next turn, I am just going to Psychic once, as we take a big Fire Punch, but honestly, completely fine, because now this Ursaluna is basically a dead Pokemon. It's at 14%, rocks are up, and we're in a pretty good spot right here. So, this next turn, I am going to go hard Slowking, as Bug Bite is not going to do the most in the world, but it definitely is pretty sizable damage, so you gotta be very careful, as I'm just going to throw off a Flamethrower here, as Liv eventually sacks off her Ursaluna, which is great. Next up is Mewtwo, and this is the thing I'm going to have to be the most careful around. It's going to come in and take Rock, so again, tells me it's at least not Boots, as Liv's going to elect a Nasty Plot immediately, and obviously fearing a potential Colbur, and I don't knock it out with a Lariat from that range. Anyways, I'm just going to U-turn out and sack off my Mega DNC. Now, if this thing was Sub, if this thing was Recover, I was in a pretty darn terrible spot, but we're going to see that Flamethrower is going to come out. It's not going to knock out my Mega DNC, but it is going to be 2-hit KO'd, unfortunately, which is completely fine. I'm going to go back out into Zarude, and I'm just going to click the U-turn button again, just in case that thing is indeed Colbur Berry. I don't knock it out from 44 if it is Colbur, so I would rather U-turn. If I don't get the same roll I did last time, I can always come back in and try and stop it that way, which I think is important. But we get in our Slowking for free right here, which is very nice. We're going to throw off a Sludge Bomb. We're going to knock out the Togekiss, and again, put ourselves in a very commanding spot, as the Sneasler's going to come in. Thanks to our Fizz Def investment, though, that's not a 2-hit KO, even though it's Life Orb, and we're just going to knock that thing right out with a Psychic. Again, absolutely phenomenal for us. And next up is Mewtwo, and from here, I feel pretty darn comfortable just sacking off my Slowking, going right into Zarude. I get a very free U-turn. Reason being this U-turn is so free is if Liv wants to pip into her Scizor, knowing that I'm Scarf and faster, that's completely fine. I still get a free Zekrom, and I just Bolt Strike and I kill something. But if she stays in, she loses Mewtwo. I get to go into my Zekrom. I get to Dragon Dance up right here, and then I'm going to be able to Bolt Strike into Dragon Claw and knock this thing out and grab ourselves a nice big victory right here against Liv. So Zekrom able to kind of clean up the game there, but tons of things put in work. In particular, Slowking put in a ton of work. DNC even getting up those rocks was imperative, and Zarude, even in a matchup where I was playing Togekiss plus Scizor, it was able to really put in a ton of work. So I was definitely happy with that performance, and off the top 16 we go. Alrighty, top 16, we're going up against I can never say it. Jaska? Regardless, we're going up against person's name starts with a J. They're a very solid player. I think I've played them a few times before, maybe once or twice. I know they're in Evo one season, but solid player. They have a terrifying team, including Marshadow, Landorus T, Toxapex, Type Null, Deoxys Speed, Moltres Galar, Mega Mawile, and Big Electabuzz. This might be the worst Dragon Dance Zekrom matchup in the world, because we have to worry about Marshadow as well as Landorus T, but that does not mean that Big Zekrom doesn't go crazy. I have 0 ways of beating the Marshadow. Defensively, 0. I have to beat it offensively. It's just not going to happen otherwise, unfortunately. And what else is really scary? Dio Speed is pretty darn scary if it's like an offensive, like Ice Beaming variant. I think Nasty Plot can be really scary for me. Nasty Plot, like Side Shock, Ice Beam, potentially Recover, can be really annoying for me to deal with. Moltres, another one that can be scary over the long term of the game if it's like a Scarf variant. And Mega Mawile, I have no switch-ins for. Nobody has switch-ins to Mega Mawile, but in particular me, I do not have the switch-ins needed. Let's go ahead and jump into the team. We see we have a special Zekrom once again. We're Dragon Fang, max special attack models. The way the speed tiers work out, he has an incredible drop-off after Moltres, which is going to be faster than me anyways. He's an incredible drop-off from there to, like, fucking Mawile. So I can run a lot of bulk of my Zekrom, allowing me to, you know, really chew some hits. We can eat Landorus Earthquakes after a couple rock switch-ins. We can chew non-life orb or banded Marshadow hits pretty darn easy as well. There's a lot of really fun things that we can do with this Zekrom, potentially, which I think is definitely really cool. We nuke Landorus after like 1 or 2 rock switch-ins, depending on how bulky it is, with a Draco Meteor from Dragon Fang, which is, again, absolutely amazing. And this is a great Peck switch, and now we don't have to worry about being burned. We don't have to be lummed, something like that. We can come in, kind of volt switch around, or just drop a big Draco, catch that Landorus once, and from there, very free volt switches. So I think Special Zekrom actually goes crazy this game. We have a pretty fun set here next in Weakness Policy, Trick Room, Glow King with Psychic Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Trick Room. The only thing we don't hit very hard is going to be that Deoxys speed, but if we're at +2, Ice Beams and Flamethrowers are still going to chunk it, so it's not the end of the world. And yeah, we can pretty much live any physical hit guaranteed from full, as long as it's not like boosting item Landorus. I think we can live Marshadow Life Orb, or maybe like non-Life Orb, but I'm pretty sure we can live a Life Orb Spectral Thief, and I don't think Poltergeist is coming, which is nice. I think Spectral Thief is much, much better versus me in particular, but definitely really cool. If we get a Trick Room up, we can really bully through this team. And it's a great pivot into Pex. Even if I don't get the Trick Room off, that thing going for like a knockoff into my Slow King slot, as I go either for a Trick Room or just like raw Psychic at +2, I'm doing a lot of damage to something, which is great. Or I Trick Room up as that thing switches out, and then I do, again, a ton of hurt, which is great. We'll be able to like 1v1 Dio at that point, which is, again, really, really clutch. And Pex knockoff isn't doing a lot to where you can potentially even be at a range of Sucker Punch from Mega Mawile, which, again, very, very nice. Next up, though, we have our Mega Diancie, another great win com. We're pretty darn bulky, but really all we need, we're not pretty darn bulky. We have a decent amount of HP investment, so we could live specific hits and things like that. But we're Moonblast, Earth Power, Rock Polish, Calm Mind. This thing goes crazy. If I could tip down type Null, and I find that opportunity to Rock Polish, I could be in a really good spot. I could even potentially find an opportunity to Calm Mind if Marshadow's gone. Obviously, I have to be careful about Marshadow being able to steal my boost. That's not fun, but if I Rock Polish up and I have broken a potential Sash with something like my Pert, which we'll talk about here in a second, or with Rocky Helmet, really anything, we Rock Polish up and we nuke that thing, which, again, very, very nice for us. And it can really win the game, late game, if we really do need it to. We can set up on things like Moltres, which is nice. And yeah, we'll go from there. And I don't expect myself to get off a Double Dance, but if I do, I think I just like raw with the game. Next up, we have a Fizdef, Rocky Helmet, Swampert. This thing is basically just going to get up rocks and be sack fodder to something like Landorus or Marshadow. That's at least my plan for it. We have Scald, Earth Power, Toxic, Stealth Rock. It also has a potential sack off to Mawile, as we do, I believe, have speed for, like, you know, just a Mawile trying to creep us being no speed or something like that. We could potentially pivot it in, live a play rough, and then threaten it out with a Scald or an Earth Power, or potentially get up rocks as it tries to sucker us. So a bunch of different options there, which is really, really nice. It's also a decent pivot into Pex. It's the reason we're special, or one of the reasons, because what do you call it? We don't want to get burned and then not do any damage at all. And Earth Power is going to at least chunk it down, potentially grab some Spit F drops, which is nice. Next up, we have another Scarf Zarude. Who would have thunk it? I think we've brought Scarf Zarude like every time we've brought it, but it does really good here in the sense that it checks the Dio speed offensively, because, again, I don't deal with like a nasty flooding very, very well. It is a Scarfer that is also resistant to Shadow Sneak, which I think is really important in Marshadow matchups and Ubers, so that's another reason we have that guy there. Yeah, we should be faster than any non-Scarfer on his team, and any Scarfer Landorus and under, pretty much, which is, again, really, really clutch. I think it's really important here to potentially be able to pivot into the Dio and revenge it that way. Then lastly, we have a Guts Flame Orb Machamp rocking out with Close Combat, Knockoff, Facade, and Earthquake. If this thing gets in on his fat, it just kills something. Guaranteed. I believe we're creeping Adamant Mawile and obviously resist Sucker, so we can knock that thing out with the Flame Orb Earthquake. Booster Earthquake. Earthquake is also great for the Pex. We can Facade and do a ton to Landorus coming in, which is also great. And Knockoff is going to be a great tool as well in this game for a potential Dio speed coming in. We kind of do have to win the prediction game, but if we do, we're in a pretty good spot, which is very, very nice. Okay, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the game. We see the Dio, Landorus, Marshadow, Moltres, Type Null, and the Mega Mawile. So no packs, which is good to know. My Machamp isn't looking super promising unless I get it in on Type Null potentially coming in, or if I bring it in after a double down after Mawile has, you know, killed something. Sorry, I think I have what do you call it, Discord on in the background. I was in call before I started recording this, and there's probably Elden Ring noises very faintly in the back because Jason's playing right now. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump on into this guy. I believe I am just going to lead off with my Swampert. Now, expecting either a taunt or an energy ball, there's no reason for me not to pivot out and scout this. There's no way in hell that this thing is going for an ice beam on this turn, as we do get crit by the energy ball, which is completely fine. We do get Spadef dropped as well, but we're able to U-turn out of there. If it was Scar for some reason, obviously we would have been able to deal with it. We're going to see a big knockoff come off into my Glow King slot, though. I figured if he stayed in, he was going to scout for, like, or go for an ice beam and try and pick me up with pick up a KO, since I did lose some Spadef on that turn. Unfortunately, we're going to have our weakness policy procced, but due to the fact that we lost our item, we're not actually going to be 2-hit KO by knockoff here, and I'm going to try and throw up a Trick Room right here to really try and break through this team. Unfortunately, we are going to see a taunt from the Deoxys. That's whatever. The next turn, I am just going to be able to very viably just throw off an Ice Beam and knock out this Deoxys. If we would have gotten up that Trick Room, we would have been able to claim some kills, but it's fine. Next up, we are going to see the Marshadow come out, and unfortunately, being I guess I wouldn't have been able to force some kills though, because this thing comes out and revenges me anyways. But regardless, being that it came out now, I have to switch out because I cannot give this thing +2 attack or I will lose the game. So I'm going to go hard into my Zarude, as we do see a Spectral Thief come out. He could have made the close combat play, but I can't risk my, losing, dying there. So I'm going to make the U-turn play out as Landorus does come in. I'm going to get in my Swampert, and basically it's going to give me 1 helmet chip on this Landorus, but 2 rocks, which are going to be really clutch for like a non-boots Moltres, breaking a sash on Marshadow, potentially, if this thing ends up dying soon, and things like that, which again, very, very clutch. Going to punch that Landorus from U-turning around, which it definitely can, as my ground resist is something that dies to U-turn. This next turn, Hurricane's going to come out. I am going to pivot hard out into Zekrom. In this turn, expecting this thing to not want to stay in and let me set up, potentially, if I am a Dragon Dance variant, I'm just going to drop a Draco. I don't expect Mawile to come hard in, as even if it does intimidate me and I'm like Adamant Bolt Strike, I rip that thing. So I am just going to throw off that massive Draco Meteor here, and after the chip is taken from rocks and helmet and things like that, this thing's going to just die, which is, again, absolutely amazing for me. Marshadow's going to come out next, and it's going to click Agility here, which is very, very interesting that it shows Agility. It has not shown Life Orb either, which is very good to know for me. But yeah, there are still things on my team that can naturally live a hit from this thing very well. But my Slowking, it just isn't needed at this point. I lose to the Moltres Galar, I lose to the Type Null, and I lose to the Mawile. So my best play here is just to stay in and click Psychic. I brought this in as a sack to like close combat into Spectral Thief or something like that, or just Spectral Thief in general coming off. So I'm completely fine with sacking this off, as he, for some reason, goes for a close combat, which I think is like a really big overplay, expecting me to pivot Zarude, because you're faster than me and kill me the next turn anyways. I really was just trying to figure out why, in particular, he went for this play, but I can't really justify it. I really don't understand why it happened. It might have been a misclick. I don't know. Regardless, I throw off a 94%, I do 94 and kill that thing with a Psychic there, because I am pretty darn offensive, which is great. Next up, Mega Mawile comes out, and there's no way in hell I am letting this thing set up in my face, as right here, I am just going to go for a Flamethrower, and it does elect a sub, and again, it's not happening here, unfortunately. So we are going to go down to a knockoff right here, but we're able to chip the Mawile down pretty substantially, as after this play rough, we're going to be putting Torrent range, and I'm just going to throw off a Scald and knock out this Mawile. So again, best case scenario for me, there's also a very fast Mawile, maybe just like Adamant max speed. Who knows, because it did outpace my Pert, which had a decent amount of speed. But that means it had less bulk, which means it will knock it out with Scald. The reason I Scald there was to punish like Moltres coming in and have a burn. We are going to see that it is not boots. This is fine though, because I can just throw off a Toxic here if I want to elect to try to set up in my face. We are just going to get taken out right there, and this next turn I'm going to go into Zekrom and just Volt switch out right here, as we are going to see the Fire Wrath come off, and this thing's going to redot down to 12 in range of rocks. So I go into my DNC. I am going to outspeed, knock this guy out, and then Type Null is going to come out next. I'm going to go hard Machamp on an Iron Head and just knock this thing out with the CC. Now, I suppose my best positioning here would have been, going just DNC right here, and potentially like setting up a Calm Mind or setting up a Rock Polish in regular form, and then going for the KO. But really, it didn't end up mattering. At worst, we lost Zekrom due to a flinch there, and it really wasn't going to be that big of a deal. Maybe it could have been scary if this was weakness policy or something like that, but even then, it would have to agility on that turn, and I guess it could have been tough if it was agility. So maybe that wasn't my best end game, but it worked out nonetheless, and I think we played this game pretty well otherwise. But yeah, that's going to be our top 16. Let's go on to top 8. Alrighty guys, here we are with our final battle. We're going up against Rhino here, and he's a really interesting team. Now, despite him having a pretty budget Uber core, like an Uber core that's not typically great, he has two, like, they're called like bronze tiers in this, but they're not like the higher tier Ubers that we can draft. They're pretty well, work pretty well together. Genesect, Giratina, Origin is a very tough core to guard against. He also has PLA Mega Guard, and if you guys don't know, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, Gardevoir got access to Recover, which is really annoying. It also got access to Ice Beam, which isn't as big, but it's cool, and Aura Sphere, so things to keep in mind, obviously. The only things that really scare me in that, I guess, would be it getting, Recover, but I think I actually have a pretty darn good Mega Gardevoir matchup. And then he has a pretty bulky core on like Toxapex, Mandibuzz, big threat in Terrakion. Terrakion is a Pokemon I do not guard very well against at all. But other than that, this matchup, in my opinion, is actually like amazing for us. There's no ground type, so DD Zekrom endgame is extremely possible. It does phenomenally in this game, in fact, and we can find multiple opportunities to set up. And we can kind of jump into our team. We have a DD Lum Zekrom, a decent amount of bulk with just Bolt Strike, Dragon Dance, Roost, Dragon Claw. We just rip through him. Like, absolutely rip through him. We're a Lum, so that we can set up on like a Peck trying to bait for Scalds. We can set it up on like Jolteon and Mandibuzz, potentially trying to status us with like Toxic, I guess. And once we chip down things like the Giratina in range of a +1 Dragon Claw, which is going to take a decent amount because Giratina is a very bulky Pokemon, even Giratina Origin with the more offensive version that it is. And once we determine Scarfers and eliminate them, like a Scarf Terrakion is something I'm definitely potentially anticipating on Rhino's end. Or Scarf Genesect as well as another, obvious option. If we can either eliminate those or get a 2 Dragon Dances, which is definitely a possibility if we position on the right thing, we could just win the game with this thing, man. So I'm really hoping we can position it. Next up, we have a Shukaberry, Fizdef, Glow King with Psychic, Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, and Slack Off. We're pretty darn Fizdef with a Shukaberry in order to take a Terrakion hit, pretty much guaranteed. Take a +2 Terrakion hit guaranteed, pretty much, as long as we keep this thing around and healthy, which is great. It's a great Pex Murderer. We Sludge Bomb and Bait Poisons on Mandibuzz, which is, again, very nice. And we check things like Jolteon, we check things like Guard naturally, as it'll probably be Psyshock in order to try and beat us. So that's obviously really clutch, and we can bait poisons on something like Giratina. Well, we don't necessarily beat it. We're not going to beat it 1v1 anyways on a team like this. Next up, we have our Mega DNT, which is Rock Polish 3 attacks. It does really well this game. Moonblast, Earth Power, Mystical Fire, and Rock Polish. Mystical Fire for the Genesect, Moonblast, and Earth Power for like everything else, which is really nice. Earth Power hits Toxapex, and everything else gets murdered by Moonblast, which is great. The best check to this is like Kecleon or something pretty bad like that. So this mon obviously does very well. Then we have a Spadef Bronzong. This is going to be our main check to the guard since our Slowking is much more Fizdef. If a special attacking guard wants to come, this is going to be our main check. We have Garaball, Psychic, Toxic, and Stealth Rock. It's also going to be a rocker for the game, obviously. We can check things like Jolteon too if we potentially need to. We can live a hit from Terrakion. We can always check the Toxapex very well as well. And even pivot into Genesect and see what it wants to go for. Maybe pepper it down with some Gyros and Psychics and also get up Rocks in its face, which is nice. We have a Choppleberry Zarude, our first time not bringing Scarf in this whole tournament. Will it come to bite us in the ass? We are rocking out with Chopple, Leaf Guard with Lariat, Jungle Healing, Power Whip, and U-Turn. We have Jungle Healing on the set because it's going to be our main pivot into Giratina, and I want to ensure, obviously, one, we're Chopple so that we can eat up Aura Spheres if it is special, and I do expect a special variant. A little bit better in this game, as it can just beat down Glow King even if it's Fizdef, or AV, sorry. And we're also Jungle Healing for burns from that thing if it is going to Wisp us on the switch in. Same thing for Pex, we can pivot into Pex potentially and, just Jungle Healing off any damage that wants to go for. Maybe throw some Power Ups and Target Slayers, force it into recover turns if we need to pivot around a little bit. So that's obviously nice, but mostly it is here for the Giratina. It's great with Revenge Killing Guard potentially as well once it takes a little bit of chip, as well as like a non-Scarf Genesect. Then lastly, we have an AV Swampert, Torrent, Instability, Scald, Earth Power, Flip Turn, and Ice Beam. Pretty darn Fizdef, so I can still take hits from the Terrakion, but I like the offensive coverage that it had in this game, and I figured an AV was the best way so we could sponge hits from like a non-boosted Genesect if it's like, or like a physical Genesect with Energy Ball teched on. Maybe soft checking a Gardevoir, pivoting the Toxapex, really checking that Jolteon to the ends of the earth, or even potentially checking like a specially offensive Giratina, at least initially throwing off big Ice Beams and things like that, which is great. So yeah, that's our team for this game. Let's go ahead, and jump into the match where we see a Leavanny, which is something I did not prep for, so that's very scary. Genesect, Giratina Origin, Mandibuzz, Mega Gardevoir, and Terrakion. So over something like Pex, which actually I kind of do understand why he didn't bring Pex, to be honest. What did I expect really other than this thing that would have been better, I suppose. I guess like a lot of his Pokemon didn't have great matchups. Maybe like an AV Kecleon could have been pretty annoying just because of its coverage and, you know, priority and things like that. Could have been like a pivot into the Mega DNC because he really just brought nothing for that Pokemon. But regardless, we're going to go ahead and jump in. Unfortunately, being that this thing did come, I am going to be forced to lead my Mega DNC and kind of just Mega Evolve. I don't know this player very well, and I don't know how aggressive he's going to play in trying to get up webs, and especially potentially in my Mega DNC's face. I can live a Leaf Blade from this thing if it's not a boosting item, and I can, if it is a boosting item, I just knock it out with Mystical Fire if it's not Sash. So these are all important things to note. I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and again, if he wants to be over-aggressive and try and webs up on me switching out into like Bronzong, I will definitely take it. So I'm just going to throw off a big Mystical Fire turn 1. It is unfortunately Sash, but we are going to see that Leaf Blade does not take us out from there, which is really, really clutch. Next up, Gardevoir comes out, but I'm just going to be able to Moonblast and Raw 2-hit KO this thing. It's not going to be able to take this into a hit when it Mega Evolves, which is, again, absolutely phenomenal. So a big threat to me gone. Really opens up my, what do you call it? Immensely, my Bronzong there, as Terrakion's going to come out here and scouting for Scarf. I'm going to go into Glowking. If it is Earthquake, I know that it's Scarf in that instance, and I can pivot into Zarude, and I can still take hits from it, especially if it's Scarf. I don't need to keep my Shuka Berry, which is nice, but we are going to see a Life Orb Quick Attack, which is very, very interesting right here, as I do just throw off a Psychic in case this thing wants to stay and try and knock me out with an Earthquake. Thankfully he doesn't. He's going to switch right out. I'm going to go ahead and eat this knockoff, and again, lose that Sugar Berry, which might be a bit dumb in hindsight, but we'll see how that ends up going. I'll try and bait a poison on this Mandibuzz, because I really don't have great switch-ins to this thing, and I know that my Glowking can force it into Roost turns, which is great. As right here, after a Slack Off, he is going to U-turn out, and I am just going to go for a Sludge Bomb as this Genesect comes in. I'm going to pivot right into Bronzong and kind of see what this thing wants to go for, as it does go for a U-turn, which is definitely very, very interesting. In this turn, I am going to go hard into my Mega DNC in order to prevent webs from going up. We are going to see an X-Scissor, unfortunately, but I had to prevent webs right there, and I'm going to be able to get a free U-turn off in this instance, which is, again, very, very nice, as the Genesect is going to come hard out. Maybe I should have just Lariated. I have no idea why he didn't go Mandibuzz, but honestly, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to go into my Swampert and not really scout for the Energy Ball, which is pretty dumb by me. But I also didn't want to get free chip with U-turn on anything else, as he did get the special attack boost, and he is going to knock me out here. So a little bit of a bozo play. I kind of just threw away a piece for no reason, but it's going to allow me to go into my Zekrom, show that he's not Scarf, which definitely was interesting. He's going to Ice Beam and get the freeze, but thankfully we were Lumberry, so what I thought was a useless Lumberry ended up coming up clutch. This turn he is going to just go ahead and sack off that Leavanny, which is good because I don't have to play with webs. Bad because I am in range of pretty much everything, but something to note is I can definitely save this Pokemon, right? Because I can still Roost up very easily in Mandibuzz's face. Even if it is Foul Play in one of its last 2 slots, if it's like Knockoff, U-turn, Foul Play, Roost, I can Roost in that thing's face very, very freely. As I am going to pivot out here into my Slowking. There's no way he's going to Earthquake me. No way in this universe that he's going to Earthquake me, as I am just going to throw off a Psychic here. Again, I can't mess around with the thing, especially now that I lost my Shuka Berry, as a Roost is going to come out, and I believe I just throw off a big Sludge Bomb. And my main thing is I'm trying to force this thing into a recover turn, so that I can get in my Zekrom and really do, you know, do some work there. As right here, the Giratina is going to come out. It's going to throw off a big Sub and then Poltergeist right here, showing me that either this is its only attacking move, which is really interesting, or that it has Outrage and it does not want to lock right now, which is, again, very, very good, interesting information to know. Is right here, I am just going to go for a U-turn. I don't expect this thing to stand whatsoever, and this is going to allow me that free switch into Zekrom, and this is going to allow me that Roost. There's a bunch of knockoffs happen right here. I don't know why he's knocking off, because you're going to see he has Foul Play, but thankfully I can Roost to a point where as long as I'm not getting crit, I stay out of range, and I'm going to be able to throw off a big Bolt Strike and knock this thing out while being as healthy as humanly possible, or just about at 50%. Right here, I am going to go into my Bronzong, and he is going to Earthquake. And at this point, the game is all but done, right? All I need to do is Gyro Ball, knock this thing out, and I'm good. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, he has pivots into this, right? He can go into Genesect, get the attack boost, get off a big U-turn, go into his Giratina, throw off a Poltergeist. Like, there's a bunch of options that he can do. And in my head, I'm like, well, Terrakion is his best way of breaking through my team. He doesn't beat me otherwise. He needs to find an opportunity to potentially set that thing up, or just really getting in on aggressive switch-ins after he's chipped down other things on my team and try and do a lot of damage. So in my head, I said, well, I might as well get out my Rocks, because Rocks will put this Giratina guaranteed in range of Dragon Claw. I don't have to set up, which is really, really clutch for me as well. And then I can just, you know, kind of cleave through his team in that way. So I'm going to get my Rocks, and you're going to see this play is going to cost me the entire game. I still don't know why he wanted to sack this, but in hindsight, after watching this game in the past, this was completely over aggressive by me. And I didn't need to make the play. I really just did not need to make this play. I could have very easily gyro balled, and that would have put whatever else on his team was in range of something else on my team. It was just needless. It was a game-losing play that I didn't need to make, and it's kind of just indicative of how I've been playing lately. We made it pretty far on this tour, so like overall, I'm happy with my performance. But it was incredibly frustrating to go out like this, because this is a game where I think I was in the driver's seat the entire time, and I think I outplayed the entire time until the end, and I threw. I super threw. Again, I do think that I thought that he would have switched there, but it wasn't a play that I could afford making. And that's a big thing in draft, where a lot of the times people will make plays because they think their opponent's going to do something, and they might even get it right. But if they get that play wrong, and like I got this play wrong, it could be game losing, and this was a game losing play, and I got punished for it. And that's just the end of the story. Which is really unfortunate, because I think I could have won this whole tour. I really do feel like I was one of the best players in this tour. I think Aki ended up making finals on the other side, who's probably better than me. But maybe I could steal a game from him, and not probably. He's better than the game than me. But everybody else, I feel like I could have pretty easily beat. And no shade, I just feel like I'm a very good Pokemon player when I'm not playing like an absolute bozo like this. So this is pretty frustrating. I would have loved to make finals and gotten to play against a great player. But again, I would have had to win my top 4 game, and that's not guaranteed. I'm not saying I guaranteed made finals, but I think I could have, if that makes any sense. So I'm very frustrated with how this one went, but that's Pokemon, and again, I got punished. I always preach this to so many people. You can make a play and you can get it right, but it still might not be a good play, because if you got it wrong, it was game losing. And because of that, that play was bad. Even though I still think he should have switched, because he didn't, I lost the game, and that is my fault. Which is frustrating, but it's a good learning lesson, right? And hopefully next BBT season will do well. I would have loved to get the back-to-back championships like in the Wi-Fi League, and then won the tour too, and won freaking, however much money. It's like a $200 prize pool. It's in the thumbnail, so you guys will know at least. But I don't know. It was a really fun tour. I loved my team. I was really glad I got to try Glow King. I love Mega D. I haven't used it in so long. Zekrom, absolute demon Pokemon. We do another season of BBL. This is what I'm drafting if I get a chance. I'm letting everybody in the draft know. This one is so good. Especially when it's not defogging at Kurt. But I had fun. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Is I really did enjoy my team. I really did enjoy the tour. The BBL staff killed it. Liv in particular, she always does so well with stuff like this. Marcus, Burgo, they really do kill it. Josh also. They do a great job with this stuff, and I'm glad I did good this run, as opposed to my last one where I didn't even make it out of brackets. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this BBT run, be sure to drop a like, as well as sub to the channel. We're almost at 700, but my main goal is 1,000, and I would love to get there. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Later.